We're here at the Golden Con podcast. Special guest, Jacob Ullman. Thanks for coming, Jacob.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So I invited you, and like I do my research on my guests. I try to do good research, so I try to ask some good questions. And then I said, I can't believe that I've invited a 10-time Emmy winner to my show.
I'm fortunate to work at a really special place where we work on a lot of high-profile events, and it's a blessing to be in that situation and be surrounded by so many awesome people and work with so many great people.
Well, so thank you for. It's very humble of you to come in here. I really appreciate you spending time with me.
I'm in the neighborhood, for Christ's sake.
Well, you are in the neighborhood.
I support the Newport Mesa, our world, right?
Yeah, we are kind of neighbors.
Not kinda. I mean,
same block, same neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
So you work at Fox, senior vice president, production, and talent development. So those are two of my favorite words.
Okay.
Talent development.
Yeah, I would say that the talent development is a little bit of, in our world, talent refers to our announcers, where in a lot of other industries, it's kind of more developing employees, talent maybe recruiting, that kind of thing, where talent in our world is kind of anybody you see in front of the camera. So our hosts, our play-by-play announcers, our reporters. So it's a little bit confusing because it's so specific to our term as opposed to recruiting, employees, that kind of thing. But yeah, talent specifically in our world refers to our announcers.
And that's how I read it, because the announcing profession, first of all, it's evolved. So tell us a little bit how you got into this. First of all, a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Newport Beach for the most part. I was born just up the road at Hoag Hospital. Lived the first 5 years of my life down the road in Laguna. Parents got divorced at a young age when I think I was 5 or so. Mom moved up to Glendale. She had family up in La Cañada, so in the San Gabriel Valley, about an hour away. At least then it took about an hour. It takes probably longer now. And Dad always lived down here. I'd spend summers down here in Newport, and then summer between 7th and 8th grade, I just stayed down here and haven't really, for the most part, left for most of my life. I've been here pretty much since.
For 7th, 8th grade, starting middle school.
Correct, okay. Right down the road at Ensign.
And then I originally ran into you at the Newport Harbor Mentor-Mentee program, which is a lights-out program that the high school
very
does.
Cool they do that, and I'm lucky that, I found out about it a few years ago and got involved.
And you're a graduate of Newport Harbor.
Correct.
Which is the Sailors.
The Sailors,
you're also a real sailor.
Yep, grew up sailing. I have, my grandfather was a renowned sailor, won the Transpac Regatta, which is from Los Angeles to Honolulu. I think he won it twice. There's even a perpetual award still named after him. His name was Chuck Ullman. And then my father, Dave Ullman, is an extremely renowned sailor. He's in the Sailing Hall of Fame, multiple-time world champion, he's coached America's Cups, Olympics. He, you actually cannot tell the history of Newport Beach without him. He is in, there's been books written about the history of Newport Beach, and he's in it. He's been, I think it's not a stretch to say he's in a world, in a city dominated by boats and sailing. He's the most famous sailor to ever come out of these parts.
Man, I'm already sad that we're going to run out of time. I have more questions than we have.
What do we have a time limit?
No, got to come back. I'm not prepared to talk about the sailing thing. That's all. So you're very comfortable on a boat, let's just say.
Yeah, I grew up on boats, and my kids sail, and I'll always, I always say I'm a Pisces from Newport Beach. I'm most comfortable when I'm on the water. This morning I was paddleboarding. I'll be, anytime I can be on the water, I'm happy.
Awesome. So you graduate in 80.
No, 91.
91.
91 from Newport Harbor.
Then you go to USC.
University of Southern California. Yeah.
Okay, great. And you're in broadcast journalism?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And USC is part of my story as well. My great grandma graduated in 1928. My grandfather was a professor there. My uncle, who lives locally, John DeRosa in Irvine Terrace, he went there and he took me to games my whole life. So, fourth generation Trojan. That was always kind of in my DNA. So even though maybe I thought of other colleges at points, it would have always been weird if I didn't go there. It was kind of predetermined, if you will, or my destiny or some silly thing like that.
You're a Trojan through and through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When you got there, did you know what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I, as we talk about When you're growing up, what do you want to be when you want to grow up? It's obviously a very abstract question that we ask people at the youngest of ages when they would have no idea, and they would say, oh, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be an astronaut, and, some crazy, or I want to be a pro baseball player or whatever. I always, for some reason, I just gravitated to sports. I wanted to be a sportscaster. That was what I always wanted to do. So I kind of always said that. I always thought that, and you started to say it. When I went to USC, I was a broadcast journalism major with a sports studies minor. So that was my focus, to be, as we talked about earlier, talent, like a front-facing announcer.
Yeah. And well, that's how I look at the word talent in your position. So we're aligned there. And first of all, I love watching talent, particularly the broadcasting talent, and everything that goes into putting on a show, everything that goes on putting on the 10 Emmys.
I'm going to ask you a question. Are there particular broadcasters you like and favorites?
Yeah, I just like the classic voices, I think. Right now, I hope I don't say a non-Fox person.
You say, but there's plenty of non-Fox people. You
So,
don't always have to be a Fox person.
Well, so I'm going to show my age. I loved Howard Cosell in the old days.
A legend.
I mean, listening to his voice.
This is actually, we are talking on a Monday,
Yes.
leading into Monday Night Football, without Howard Cosell. And I mean, does Monday Night Football even exist?
Doesn't
right?
exist.
He made it an institution.
And then I remember that, when Monday Night Football was having trouble with rankings, I remember they started, looking at comedians to come on and do it. And I thought that was kind of strange. And I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
era.
the two, I guess, most prominent examples. They had Dennis Miller.
Dennis Miller.
Booth, and then later they added Tony Kornheiser. So
Right.
Dennis Miller was in the ABC years, and Tony Kornheiser was early in the ESPN broadcasts of it. Yeah, they tried to probably to recapture kind of what you're talking about with Howard Cosell and Dandy Don Meredith, and it was this unique. It was more a show than just the game itself.
Yeah. Well, I love the voices. And then I will tell you, fast forward to today, because a lot of things have changed. I am just in love with the Manning cast. When that came out, I wasn't sure on it. I was like, I don't know about these two guys. But now, as they have fine-tuned their skills, I go back and forth now between the game and the Manning cast, because I find so much enjoyment watching their faces, the talent, talk about the talent.
The Manning cast is awesome, and the first year it was out, that's all I watched when it was on. Every it's not every week, but every Manning cast I do, that was my preferred choice to watch the game. Flash forward to last year and this year, when ESPN added Joe Buck and Troy Aikman from Fox, two people that I worked with and were my teammates for, depending on which one, but 20 plus years for both of them. I now watch them. I'm a huge fan of their work. I think they're supremely talented. They'll be friends for life. I think the world of them. So I actually do not watch the Manning cast more just because I think Joe and Troy are so good. I'd rather watch them.
And they are good, yeah. And Joe's good at everything.
He's amazing.
And Troy's good at football.
They're both supremely talented, Troy has become as good an analyst as there is in sports, and Joe is once in a generational talent in my opinion, and also a wonderful human being.
I agree with you. Yeah, agree with you. So then you graduate with a sports journalism degree, and then you get a job. Where's your first job?
Well, it's even earlier than that. When I was in school, the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I interned at Prime Ticket, which those of us in Southern California of our age know what that is. It was a regional sports network that was focused on the local teams in LA, the Lakers, the Angels, the Kings. I interned there, and then my junior year, they hired one USC student and one UCLA student to be a paid production assistant. I got to do that. So, Prime Ticket growing up in the 80s and 90s in Southern California was a huge, huge deal, and later became Fox Sports West, and now is actually Bally Sports West. I learned a lot there, and I had a lot of good mentors and people I still deal with in the business that were there at that time. This summer between my senior year, I got a call out of the blue from a guy by the name of Doug Jackson. Left a voice or an answering machine message because there were no cell phones and there were no voicemail. It was a traditional answering machine with a tape, an actual cassette. And he said, "Hey, this is Doug Jackson from Fox Sports, inquiring if you're interested in the NFL and would be interested in potentially working here." Got that out of the blue. So called him, and basically, long story short, Fox Sports was starting. They got the rights to the NFL from CBS in December of 1993. This is June of 94, and their first broadcast is going to be a couple months later in August of 1994. The highlights area there was going to be done kind of state of the art at the time. It was going to be games were going to be logged via computers, recorded via Laserdisc, like something that didn't exist, in the industry at that time. And David Hill, our original president, said, "I want college kids involved. I don't want people that have been in the business for a long time and will be, intimidated by technology." So they went to the local colleges. Somebody at USC recommended me. I still to this day do not know who that was. Got the call from Fox, and that was June of 1994. And here we are in October of 2023, and I've kind of never had to look for a job. So my senior year, I worked part-time at Fox, and then it was less traditional in that when I graduated, I didn't really have to look for a job, or I won't say I didn't look for a job. I was trying to figure out what was next, and I was able to work part-time still at Fox that summer, and then as we got to the start of football season, I was able to get a full-time job, and I've kind of never looked back.
Okay, so I got to unpack a few things. First of all, there's no internet right now.
Internet, no, and it's starting.
It's starting.
So my senior year of college, which was 1994-95, I actually took a class called Exploring the Information Superhighway. I think there was like 4 classes like that in the country. And our job, or our project, was to create a website. So I actually created a website for my dad's company, Ullman Sales, as part of my project. It was very primitive, but it was using HTML, and I put together a website. And there was email existed. Those were the days where people either had like an AOL, a CompuServe account, and it was not. I would nowhere like what it is, and is such a big part of people's lives now. But when I started at Fox, I had an email account, so the web was just starting, but it existed, but in a very primitive form.
Yeah, there's no wireless, and it was still ba-bong,
Yep,
ba-bong,
exactly.
and you were like, oh, U.S. Robotics 28.8.
Yeah, but I was never, once I started full time at Fox, post graduation '95. I don't ever remember a time where email wasn't a way I was communicating with people. So I would say my career kind of coincided with the internet becoming, a major part of all of our lives.
So that's probably good for you.
Yeah, it probably
being a younger
worked out
person,
that way.
and some of the older people may be struggling with this new version of communication that had been around for a while.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And so what are you doing there? Are you a talent yourself?
No, when I started there, so after the highlights, my first year there, I started as a researcher, meaning I would be assigned to I was assigned to 2 of our NFL crews, and I would provide them with kind of all their statistical research during the week. So, if you watch a game and you see a graphic, Brock Purdy 2 weeks ago had the highest completion percentage in a game by a 49er quarterback of all time. That's the kind of stuff I'd be looking up and sharing with our crews. We didn't have an outside company that does that. A lot of times now, there's a company called Sport Radar that does it. The Elias Sports Bureau has existed forever, but we did all our statistical research in-house. So I was assigned to 2 crews, and that's what I would do.
But how do you find that without the internet? How did you? Because that stuff is not queryable.
Yeah,
online,
it was more looking up. You have media guides. You have the NFL would have something called the Record and Fact Book. It was like hard. You look them up in books and do kind of basic old-fashioned research.
So to me, the analogy is today with AI and Google, the art of your queries, like what to type in to get something out. That still was in existence with you because you have a certain amount of time. You have to come up with decent questions to research because your research.
Yeah, so
takes-
you're being proactive and offering stuff up, and
Yeah.
also the the crews you're working for, hey, can you look this up for me? And we had Elias, the company I mentioned earlier, we would use them for some things to look up stuff that we didn't have the ability to look up. You could also, you might have a question for a team. You'd go to their public relations department and say, hey, I remember one that for some reason sticks out of my head. Frank Reich, who is now Carolina's head coach, is famous. He was backup quarterback primarily. Well, the Carolina Panthers were an expansion team. So the question was, who in the NFL right now, what quarterbacks have played the most games and started the fewest? So Frank Reich had been in the league for what's called 12, 13 years, but had only started a couple games in his career. So something like that, comparing him to the rest of the league.
That's right. Okay, so you're doing your research. You are probably you're going to be moving up here because you've moved all the way up, and so your research just gets a reputation of being high quality and good context.
And keep in mind, Fox Sports is just starting.
Okay.
Like, it seems, now it's hard to imagine a world where we do Super Bowls and World Series and World Cups and Daytona 500s, but we were just starting. When I started, we had one sport. We had the NFL, which is a pretty big sport to start with.
Right.
But there was even a famous line from John Madden at our first, what we call our football seminar, where he said, "Why is this called Fox Sports? It should be called Fox Sport. There's one sport here." And then we started adding. So, trivia question for you: what was the second sport that we had at Fox?
Second sport at Fox must have been baseball.
That's usually the logical answer, and I think one that, because obviously the amount of World Series we've done, All-Star games and the like. The second sport we actually had was the NHL.
Oh.
We're remembered. The glowing puck is what we're most remembered for, which was probably didn't get the respect it deserved. Unbelievable technology to make that happen. Similar technology to what you see when you watch a game and you see the yellow first down line that on the field simulated. That is similar tracking technology to see that. But the NHL was our second sport. So once we added the NHL, there just became more work. And it was such a small company. I just got opportunities to do lots of things. So from my research work, I started doing production work. I'd start helping producers if they're doing a feature on, say, who was a big player then, Steve Young. Hey, I'm doing a feature on Steve Young. Can you start pulling, look through all of our games and what we call meltdowns, which is kind of the best shots from a game, to make that piece better. So I just started honestly doing the production work a little bit on the side, and then I kind of had an aptitude for it, and so started to do more in the production realm, and the research thing kind of went away, and that was kind of I kind of almost promoted myself in a way. Just I started working there and just kind of doing two jobs, and that's where I kind of fell into and kind of worked my way up more on the production side at that point.
That seems to be a trend with people I've talked to that have moved up. They started to do things that they weren't being asked to do while doing the things they were being asked to do.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think that's probably what it takes, right? You don't say no to anything, and you figure out ways you can help out and make yourself valuable and hopefully indispensable.
Right. So you mentioned Madden, the telestrator. Was that something that was introduced during your tenure there?
Yeah, Telestrator was when he was at CBS.
That was
when
CBS.
It really became. By the time Fox got the NFL in 1994, that was already just part of broadcast.
It was already going.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So great. So now you keep moving up, and when this last position of you're senior vice president right now? I would imagine the upward mobility is getting more narrow at this point.
Yeah, I think I couldn't tell you exactly when I got that promotion. I would say that kind of another milestone, if you will, would be in 2013 when we launched what was at the time called Fox Sports 1, and now has been simplified to FS1. I was a big part of that launch, and a big part of back to the talent part of the job, finding and helping audition and work with. We had a team of kind of hiring and through the audition process identifying people we wanted to hire. So that kind of led to, I think, eventually to getting promoted to a senior vice president, and it was a cool opportunity. It was the fact that I've been a part in a way of two startups, when Fox Sports started and then when our cable network FS1 started, is pretty special and unique.
Okay. When Fox Sport started.
Exactly.
So it's grown quite a bit.
Yes, we've come a long way, but that's quite a startup when you can start with the NFL.
It sure is. So, okay, so now, well, how many sports are going on now at Fox Sports?
Oh, geez, I don't know, so many.
Including wrestling, is that
Yeah,
right?
the three that I'm most heavily involved in are NFL coverage,
Okay.
NASCAR, and then, as you alluded to, the WWE, for lack of a better term, pro wrestling, which we broadcast every Friday night on Fox, Friday Night SmackDown.
And that does well.
It does. It's great. I think pro wrestling in general is on a good upswing. There's competition between the WWE and a relatively new startup company called AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which is ran by a guy named Tony Khan. His family, the Khan family, they own the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Fulham Soccer Club in England, and he's a lifelong wrestling fan, and they've got heavily involved in the sport, and they have a kind of an upstart league competing with the WWE.
Okay. And a rising tide.
Exactly. So
Well,
I think
sure.
it is kind of for fans. It's fans of pro wrestling. This is a great time because
Sure.
the two companies are probably helping elevate each other.
And the NASCAR, you must have. Well, you can't cover NASCAR from here. Did you cover NASCAR from Newport Beach?
Well, our studio's in LA, so
It is,
in
okay.
in LA, we actually, I would say 85% of Fox Sports is based in Century City, which at the Fox studio lot. We also have a presence in our New York office, which is primarily sales, though we have two of our FS1 shows daily or in Midtown Manhattan as well. And then in Charlotte is where our studio is that primarily focuses on NASCAR and other motorsports. So I spend some time, a few times a year, going to Charlotte, and also a lot of time going to NASCAR tracks.
I figured that you would have to have a presence down there.
Yep.
To
Yep.
cover it well.
Yeah, dude, that's obviously that is the epicenter of the sport, is in Charlotte.
Okay, great. All right. Well, other things that you do. Thank you for all this, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other things that you do extremely well. You are on many boards with many nonprofits. So, how did you get such a heart for so many different activities?
Yeah, I suppose I love helping people and caring. I probably don't do a great job of saying no, for better or for worse. But no, that I'm fortunate that there's a lot of great groups that have asked me to be a part of, and it's an honor to be invited. And once again, once you're offered an invitation to the point of being hard to say no, you don't, it's hard to say no when it's for a worthy cause and something that you believe in, and also are would be working with great people.
Yeah. Well, I keep track of you, and I'm inspired by you. You do a lot of amazing things in the community.
Thank you. Well, this is once again, I was born here. My kids were born at the same hospital as I was, and my stepmom's an architect. She actually designed the new tower at Hogue, so her grandchildren were born in the hospital she designed. So yeah, this is a special place. And like I said, my grandfather sailed here. My father grew up sailing here. This is Newport will always be home.
Okay. So your career, you've seen 30 years of it, but from my lens, I've recently just started helping out because of, particularly at the high school, the ability that we can live stream now, and that we have talent, not just on the field, but in the
Pretty
the studio.
phenomenal, right?
Well, it's unbelievable, and the amount of energy that it gives me and gives the people around it, and the amount of people that can listen to their grandkids and watch their grandkids.
Well, that would be what actually would pop to my mind. So on an NFL weekend, we can have up to 8 games. The most weekends we have 6. And a big part of my week responsibilities on a Saturday, I check in with all of our producers across the country. They're, just making sure everything's okay, giving them some final instructions of things that might be different this weekend, things that could have changed from I put out a producer memo. And the amount of, hey, I'm live streaming my daughter's game, she's playing high school or college lacrosse, or my son's playing high school football. Like, we have a lot of the people I work with. We have unique jobs where they're traveling around the country. We have a game in Charlotte, North Carolina. The people that are working on that game, probably all of them, if not most of them, are not from Charlotte, North Carolina.
No, they got kids.
Yeah. So it's pretty awesome that they can, stream their kids' games and don't miss them. And that technology is pretty special.
It's amazing. And we were, doing the football game at the high school, and we got this box that gives us an idea of the analytics. We got 6 countries watching this game.
Incredible.
It's incredible. So literally, we're broadcasting all over the world, trying to develop talent with our high school students, getting them better at play-by-play, color, sideline reporting. And frankly, all of those talents, which you've spent a career developing people with those talents, those are all applicable in any job. I mean, this is way beyond your talent development of what you're doing with the people that you've worked with for 30 years. Now with technology, it almost seems like many organizations need this talent regardless if they're in sports or not.
Yeah,
you're vying for attention span.
And I think, it's so much of what makes somebody good. Obviously, there's innate ability, and the interesting thing in our business is the talent on air are subjective, right? You told me your favorite was Howard Cosell. Well, Howard Cosell also was, a lot of people despised him, so it's subjective. But I think a lot of what makes somebody good is also preparation, attention to detail, passion, things that you can work at, and some things that you either kind of have or don't have.
Can you look at somebody's audition? Do you look at auditions? Okay, can you look at an audition and see how much is it natural talent, or is it a gift, or what? Can you see things?
Yeah, and there's instincts, right? And how people can react to situations and lead a discussion. When somebody is announcing either in a studio or on air, they have a producer and a director in their ear, and the ability to carry on a conversation and not react, and listen and process while they're talking and you not miss a beat. You'll hear if you're watching a game or a show, somebody, I know, I got it. Like there's sometimes inexperienced people and maybe people that aren't, they'll answer the questions on the air. You hear it a lot when people are doing games for the first time. So those are some skills, and not miss a beat.
You had a birthday recently.
Well, this year.
Okay, what is it? How would I know that you had a birthday?
It was a big one. 5-0.
Okay, so you're 50-year-old Jacob.
Yes.
What is 50-year-old Jacob? What is the advice that 50-year-old Jacob gives 25-year-old Jacob?
I would say have faith, and despite being at Fox for a long time, and you have ups and downs like anybody does, right? And just not to get frustrated, and I think the younger you are, potentially the more impatient you are. Youth, the other good phrase, youth is wasted on the young. Not appreciating and living in the moment, and worrying a little bit more about, how's this going to work out? And it's going to work out okay. And I do think that hard work, I think, there's no absolutes, but I think if you work hard, I think things tend to work out in your favor.
In the way they should, yeah. So does Fox cover any golf?
We had a deal with the USGA. We cover the U.S. Open, among other events for them. And the pandemic forced us and a lot of other people to downsize, and so we ended up selling those rights back to NBC, who had them before us. So unfortunately got out of the golf business. But as you mentioned, Joe Buck, and doing a lot of sports, he was the face of our golf coverage when we had it.
That's good. All right. What should we be looking for out of, what are you guys optimizing for right now?
Yeah, this is the start of a new NFL deal this year, so that's kind of a little bit of a reset. In the previous deal, we had Thursday night football. Now we're just focused on Sundays, which the big game on Fox and CBS every other week is the 4:25 Eastern game, which is 1:25 here. That doubleheader game is still the most watched game in all of television. As big as we think Sunday night football is and Monday night football, Sunday afternoons is by far still the biggest time of the year. So that's still kind of the deal. We have. We alternate years. We have the Super Bowl. We don't have it this year, but we have it in February of 2025 in New Orleans. So that'll be our next big NFL game. And then, right now in October, we have lots of people at our company covering the baseball postseason, which will culminate with the World Series on Fox.
Of course. All right. Well, we appreciate the talent that you develop so that people like us can enjoy it and get away from the world for a while and just. Sports is the last great thing where you can violently disagree with the other person at the table and be best friends.
There's a reason. I think it's something like 85 of the most 100 watched television programs last year were NFL games. I think that
it's unbelievable.
I think people like to watch their football.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, Jacob.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you. Have you back. Okay.
Good to have you in town.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah.